So we are in the week of January. Actually, no, we're in February now. We've already finished practical 1. So February 1 through 4. And we'll go over the practical on Thursday. But we're going to go over histology today. It's exercise 4 in the lab manual. Okay. And I believe at the end of the week on Sunday, you'll have a exercise 4 quiz due. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with histology, which is the study of tissues. And neurology is study of histo is tissues. Okay, and this comes straight from your text, right? Or not from your text, but from the Canvas course, right? So basically there's 4 types of tissues. We're going to start with epithelial, but basically we've got tissues, epithelial, we have connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. All right. So those are the 4. So if I ask you for a big category, that's what I'm talking about. And if I ask you for a specific tissue, it'd be one of the tissues in these categories. Okay. All right, so we can classify epithelial tissues in 2 main ways. One way is how many layers are there, okay? If you have 1 layer, it's simple epithelium. If you have more than 1 layer, it's stratified. Okay, does that make sense? 1 layer is simple, multiple layers stratified. You can also classify epithelial tissues based on the shape. If the cells are flat, irregular shaped, they are squamous. Okay, so from this view, you mainly see flat cells. All right, and it also depends on the vantage point, because you might also see cells that look kind of like a fried egg. They're irregular. Those are also squamous. Okay, and the main thing is we're also looking at the apical layer, like I don't say top, I'll say apical, but basically the cells right here are flat. And it doesn't matter if these cells down here are not flat. Okay, we're looking at basically where that epithelial lining touches some other or opens to some other surface. Okay, so the edge of the epithelium, basically. All right. If those cells are flat, we consider this flat. Okay. So this is simple squamous epithelium. This is stratified squamous because this layer is flat. Okay. Also have cuboidal cells, square shaped. And if they have 1 layer, it's simple cuboidal. Multiple layers, it's stratified cuboidal. Okay. We also have columnar or rectangular shaped cells. We have 1 layer, simple columnar. If you have multiple layers, again, just that apical layer has to be rectangular or columnar. You have multiple layers, and the layer that's sort of open to the whatever is the outer layer or outer surface. If that is columnar, we consider that columnar epithelium. So this is stratified columnar. Okay. So, all right. So what are the 2 ways that we classify epithelium again? By what and what? Number of layers and the shape, right? Number of layers and shape. All right, so this is simple squamous. Okay, so this is the simplest. Allows for diffusion, passage of materials, filtration. Okay, you'll see these in the lungs, lining of the heart, blood vessels. Okay, which should make sense because you have diffusion or filtration happening there, right? Gas exchange in the lungs, blood vessels, you know, particularly like your capillaries, you know, you're exchanging nutrients. All right. Now these are one layer of sort of irregular or flat cells. Okay, so this is simple squamous. It's another view. All right, so it doesn't all look exactly the same as the last slide, but these are one layer really, because it depends on what layer you look at it. Because if you look at the cell looks like this. If you look at it from the side, it might look like this, but if you look at it on top, it might actually look wider, right? Depends on where you're looking at it from. Okay, but these don't have a regular pattern. Okay, these are not cuboidal, okay? They're very irregular shaped. These are also simple squamous. These are also simple squamous. Again, fried egg, irregular shape, right? So if you see cells look like fried eggs, it's simple squamous. Okay, another view of simple squamous epithelium. And again, we're just looking at the lining, okay? That one layer, okay? Those cells are flat, they're squamous, and it's just one layer, so simple squamous, right? So we're just looking here. So, all right, so we're just looking at those cells. All right. All right, again, this one layer. All right, around a glomerulus in your kidney, so it's Bowman's capsule. All right, so that's simple squamous. All right, down here you've also got some flat irregular cells in the cheek. These are also simple squamous. These are real hard to see, but these are one layer here of square-shaped cells. So these are simple cuboidal. But we'll show you some better views of those. All right. We also have stratified squamous. And why is it stratified? Multiple layers, okay? And why is it stratified squamous? Because of the shape, right? So all of this is stratified squamous epithelium. This apical layer, it's kind of onto the opening. These are flat, so it's stratified squamous. Okay. One thing you'll also see with epithelium, typically you have epithelium, and underneath it or deep to it, you've got connective tissue. Okay, and then anchoring your epithelium to the connective tissue is what we call a basement membrane. Okay, it should make sense because the basement would typically be at the bottom of the house, right? So it's the anchor for the epithelial cells. But if you see multiple layers like that, it's stratified squamous. All right, and this is in the esophagus, right? This is how you get food down into your digestive system. All right, here's another view. See these stratified squamous in your skin surface, is stratified squamous. So your epidermis, lining of your mouth, your throat, your esophagus, rectum, anus, and vagina, all stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, helps protect your body against physical protection, or provide physical protection against pathogens, abrasion, chemicals. And again, Doesn't matter what these cells look like. It only matters what the cells of the apical surface look like. Okay? These are flat, so it's stratified squamous. Again, you've got basement membrane attaching to the connective tissue below, or deep to that. These, which we'll get into more in lecture, these are stem cells. And also when we talk about integumentary systems, that those cells essentially give rise to the cells here. All right. Another view, stratified squamous, multiple layers. Cells at the surface are flat. More views, multiple layers, surfaces. At the surface, cells are flat. Okay, now we have simple cuboidal epithelium. See these in kidney tubules? They help with secretion and absorption. You got a large central nuclei in a cube-like cell. Okay, a lot of these are cube-like, one layer. So it's simple cuboidal. There's another view. Now here's a kidney tubule. Cells one layer thick. Simple cuboidal. All right, so here's another view. Like if you were to slice open the tubules, right? One layer. Each cell is basically cuboidal. Okay? So it's like, it's not perfect cubes, but close, right? And you have to be kind of creative, right? Because it's not going to be like, again, perfect cubes. But you're kind of training your eyes for what to see, right? Because I know if you're not really looked at a lot of microscope slides, it just looks like a bunch of stuff. So I'm just trying to train you to see, know what to look for, right? All right, here's another one layer. It's cuboidal shaped. One layer, cuboidal shaped. All right, you can also have cuboidal epithelium where there's multiple layers involved. Okay, and that would be stratified cuboidal. Okay, so you'll see these, they help with protection. You'll see them in some sweat glands, mammary glands, salivary glands. Again here, these are cuboidal shaped, but you've got at least 2 layers. Okay, I don't know if y'all can see that, but kind of draw an imaginary layer here, like that. And then here's the inside layer. Okay. And then you have a bunch of cuboidal cells, right? All right, so here's another view. Stratified cuboidal. Again, these are cuboidal shaped cells, but got 2 layers. Okay, can y'all see that? There's 2 layers. Okay, this is a sweat gland duct. All right, another view, multiple layers, cuboidal cells. All right, multiple layers, cuboidal cells. Stratified cuboidal. All right, now we also have columnar shaped cells or rectangular shaped cells. You have 1 layer, it's simple columnar. These help with absorption and secretion. All right. Columnar cells, a lot of times you'll see cilia or microvilli on them. These are increasing the surface area in your small intestine. Why would you want to increase your surface area in your small intestine? You might know what happens there. If you don't, it's okay. So you break down the food in your stomach, right? And then it goes to your intestines. So your small intestine is where you absorb that food that's been broken down, right? So to increase the likelihood that you're actually going to absorb that food, increasing the surface area along the lining of those small intestines helps you. You create more opportunities to absorb, okay? Because it creates little bitty ridges, right? So that's what these are on the edge of these cells, all right? And it's one layer, so it's simple columnar. Now these little white circle areas, these are goblet cells, okay? So you might have to, on a practical, identify what these are. And you would tell me that they're goblet cells. And if I also asked you what's in them, or what do they produce, or what do they secrete, you would say mucus, okay? And that mucus helps to kind of lubricate the lining of your small intestines, right? Make it easy for food to move through. All right, another view. Again, one layer of columnar cells. Again, here's your basement membrane attaching it to the connective tissue that's deeper to that. All right, simple columnar again, one layer. Can you see that these cells are columnar shaped? Y'all see that? Yes or no? Yes, no? All right. So, all right. Does that help to see kind of that they're rectangular shaped? One layer. And again, this is why I don't say top and bottom, because it just depends on where you're looking on the slide, right? So you have essentially like a basement membrane or basal surface and an apical surface that opens to the quote unquote outside. It may not be outside of your body, but all right. All right. And this you just have to practice. I think I have some anatomy games in the modules that you can practice these. You can do these a bunch of times. I think it should help you. Another view, one layer columnar shaped cells. Another view, one layer columnar shaped cells. And there's some more goblet cells there, those little white balls. Now you can also have columnar epithelium with multiple layers, in which case it's stratified columnar epithelium. All right, again, you got multiple layers, but the layer with these layers at the apical surface is columnar. And it doesn't matter what these are. Okay. So that is stratified columnar. Okay. These are rare. The male urethra. You can see these, some glands. But again, your basement membrane, connective tissue underneath. All right, again, in this space here, and you have to realize this is in 2 dimensions. So really, this salivary gland duct is like a tube. It goes all the way around, okay? You just sliced it right here, all right? So this space in the middle, we call that a lumen. Okay? So that's where the saliva and everything is going through. So again, apical surface layer, columnar shape, multiple layers, stratified columnar. All right, here, again, you got your connective tissue attached by basement membrane. Okay, another view. Again, multiple layers. All right, here's a layer. These are columnar, okay? Same here, multiple layers, columnar. Okay. Like I said, it will take you a while to train your eyes to see it. And again here, multiple layers, this layer is columnar. All right, multiple layers. This layer is columnar, multiple layers, this layer is columnar. All right, now, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it's good for our bodies, but from a classification standpoint, this is one that makes things a little funky. All right, so you've got some epithelium in some places along the epithelium, there's 2 layers. In some places, there's 1 layer. Okay, sometimes that cell goes all the way to the bottom or all the way to the basement membrane. Other times it does not. So it's not a truly stratified membrane or epithelium. So we call that pseudostratified epithelium or pseudostratified columnar. Now you'll also see these little hairs, which we call cilia. That's another clue this is pseudostratified. Okay, if you see those cilia, it's probably pseudostratified. Okay, this is in the human trachea. All right, so those cilia kind of move all the things that you're breathing in and moving away. All right. Another view, again, I don't know if y'all can see this, but some of the cells, like this one goes all the way to the basement membrane. This one does too. This one does not. This one does not. This one does not. All right, this one does not. So it's not a truly stratified epithelium. Okay. And this is not as clean. I don't know if you could tell the difference between this and stratified columnar epithelium, but with the it's very clean. I mean, you can really almost see the lines, right? With this, it's just kind of garbled, right? All right, again, here it's kind of garbled. Okay, you don't have the clear, distinct lines. So that's pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Same here. And then again, there's some goblet cells and cilia. All right. Transitional epithelium. Okay, this one, to me, looks like bubbles and pillow kind of thing. And it should, because it lines your urinary bladder. And sometimes your bladder's empty, and sometimes your bladder's full, right? And your cells in your urinary bladder have to be able to deal with the stress of that, right? So they've got to be able to handle not being, sometimes they're going to have to be stretched out, sometimes not. All right, so when it's not being stretched out, it kind of gets this pillowy shape. Okay. All right, and there's no real distinct layers, right? It's just stuff all over the place. All right. So this is your relaxed state. Looks kind of all, swollen, kind of is all pushed up. And then when it's stretched, it kind of flattens out. Okay. But again, you don't have a real good continuous layer of cuboidal cells. So this is not cuboidal epithelium. This is transitional. Okay. But where you find this is in the urinary bladder. Okay, this is all jumbled up. Okay, transitional. And it's transitional, but it's transitioning between being stretched and being relaxed, right? Again, it's more in the relaxed state. Okay. So that's epithelial tissue. All right, so if I have one layer of irregular cells, what is that? What type of epithelium? Simple what? If it's a regular flat shape. Squamous. All right, if it is multiple layers of square shaped cells, what is that? Stratified cuboidal. It's multiple layers of rectangular shaped cells. It's stratified columnar. Good. If the cells go between being stretched and being relaxed, then it is what? Transitional epithelium. Okay. So that's the kind of stuff we want to be able to do. Right. All right, so now that we cover epithelial tissue, let's cover connective tissues. All right, so this is a picture you need to know, okay? I'm just telling you now. You're gonna have a quiz coming up. All right, so next week you have your quiz, okay? This is a picture you probably want to study for your quiz, right? Just giving you a hint. This is a picture you probably want to study for your quiz, okay? So it has a lot of connective tissue cells in it. All right, so, and we're going to cover a lot of these, but this one has them all kind of in one picture, okay? So knowing what each of these are, being able to identify them, is something you're going to need to be able to do. All right. Here's blood in the blood vessels, some fat cells, adipocytes. Here's a melanocyte, gives you skin pigmentation. Okay, plasma cell, free macrophage. Here's a mast cell, a lymphocyte, helps with immunity. Here's a fibroblast cell, which we'll talk about later. Mesenchymal cell, and these big yellow cords. All right. All right, so we got those, and then we've got, okay, it looks like some reticular fibers. Okay. All right, I think also in the canvas shell, I believe I have this picture in there as well. So you can study that picture as well. All right. Mesenchyme, we'll start there because mesenchyme is basically a developmental connective tissue, which means when your cells are developing, becoming more mature, they can start out as different cell types. All right, so these cells right here, these are mesenchymal cells. All right, that's not a great picture, but I think you should have a picture also in your lab manual. Okay. All right, here's some more pictures. So when you have these kind of lots of these little dots, these are mesenchymal cells. All right. And to be honest with you, this was one where it's probably going to be easier to identify it based on process of elimination. I believe we've got some keys in your canvas that'll help you to kind of break it down. So, well, if it's this, and if it's not, it's something else, and that helps. But this is one where you'll probably eliminate everything else to make sure it's mesenchyme. All right, but if you see all these little cells like that, it's mesenchyme. Okay, and these are all basically stem cells, okay, which means they can develop into different kinds of tissues. All right. This is another chart you really want to spend some time on, okay? Letting you know that now, okay? So mesenchyme, we said, was our developmental tissue that develops into our different connective tissues, right? So connective tissue, you know, I talked about big categories, right? Epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Connective has subcategories, okay? So you need to know these 3 subcategories for connective. All right, connective tissue proper, fluid connective tissues, and supporting connective tissues. Okay, those are 3 subcategories. Under connective tissue proper, you have the loose connective tissue and the dense connective tissue. Okay, we'll cover these individually, but under the loose, we've got areolar connective tissue, adipose tissue, and reticular tissue. Under dense, we have dense regular, dense irregular, and elastic. All right, so those are all under connective tissue proper. Under fluid, we've got blood and lymph. Okay, and so even though they're fluids, we do consider them connective tissues because they do arise from mesenchyme. Okay. Where do you have blood? Cardiovascular system, right? Where do you have lymph? In your lymphatic system. And then we've got our supporting connective tissues, which are cartilage and bone. All right, so under cartilage, we've got hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrous cartilage, and we're going to talk about those all, so don't worry about knowing them all right now, but I want to show you how to organize them. And then under bone, we have compact bone and spongy bone, but we'll focus mostly on compact bone. All right. So, and I know that's hard to see. All right. So is that a little easier? See the different categories? All right. Connective tissue proper, fluid, supporting. Okay, so for connective tissue, I could ask you one of those three categories. Okay, you might be looking at a slide. And if it's bone or cartilage, you tell me it's supporting connective tissue if I ask you for the subcategory. If it's blood or lymph, you tell me it's fluid connective tissue if I ask you for the subcategory. And if it's, dense, irregular, regular or elastic, adipose, reticular, or areolar, you tell me it's connective tissue proper if I ask you for the subcategory. So, all right, so let's start with areolar connective tissue. So with areolar, so what you'll see is basically like a meshwork. Okay, you've got these collagen fibers in pink, and these black or dark, the thin fibers are elastic fibers. Okay, and the little dots, these are fibroblast nuclei. Fibroblasts are one of the types of connective tissue cells. So anytime you see the word blast usually means build. So these are cells that build connective tissue. Okay, so that is areolar connective tissue. All right, so going back to that picture, all right, here's that meshwork, right? The collagen fibers and elastic fibers here in blue, okay? So that's that, all right? The elastic fibers in blue and yellow collagen fibers. Okay, another view. Again, all right, got a bunch of fibroblast nuclei. You see the meshwork? You see it's like wires going every which direction. All right, yes, no, kind of. All right, so that's your areolar connective tissue. Next, we have adipose tissue, also known as what? Fat. All right, adipocytes or fat cells. Okay, so where do we find it? Abdomen, breast tissue, okay, around the kidneys, under the eyeballs, under your skin. But basically, you see these little kind of like mothball or or a honeycomb type structure. All those little white circles, those are Adipocytes. Okay, so this is adipose tissue. Just remember, cells come together to make tissue. Now, they're very thin membranes, and these little dark spots are the nuclei. So the nuclei on the adipocytes are on the edge of the cell. They're not in the middle. Okay. But these are usually easier to find. You know, if you see this, it's pretty easy to tell it's adipose tissue. All right. So all right, another view, the adipocytes, making up adipose tissue. Another view here. Okay, see all the little circles? Okay, it's adipose tissue. Same thing here. It's all that in the middle, it's fat. It's fat droplet. Okay. And again, there's a nuclei on the sides. All right, so we've also got reticular connective tissue. The biggest way I can tell you how to identify this are these kind of striking black lines. Those are your reticular fibers. So if you see reticular fibers, it's generally going to be reticular tissue. Okay. All right. So can y'all see these fibers here? Can y'all see them in the picture? So you should be able to see them really well on the right. Okay. This is a different staining, so they stain more of a dark purple here, but you should be able to see those. Okay. All right. So you can kind of see them here. Again, different staining, but you should still be able to see the black lines. Okay. And black lines, again, those are reticular fibers. And when we get into integumentary system in lecture, you'll learn a lot more about the different fibers. Okay. So that's loose connective tissue under connective tissue proper, right? So remember, loose is the areolar, the adipose, and reticular tissue. Now we're in the dense part of connective tissue proper. So this is dense regular. All right. So anybody know what loose means or what dense means? What does it mean to be dense? It's not loose, right? So loose is spread out. Dense is packed tightly. Can you see that these fibers are packed closer together than they were on the other ones? So this is dense connective tissue. Now, you have kind of a wavy regular pattern. Okay, so this is dense regular connective tissue. Where do you see these? Tendons, ligaments, aponeuroses. Okay? But if you see those waves, right, it's a regular pattern, it's dense regular. And the little lines, those are collagen fibers. And then the dots, those are your fibroblast nuclei. You all see the waves, regular pattern? Yes, no? Tell me something, y'all. I need to see something. All right. All right. So in this slide, you actually see multiple things. So here you have some fibroblast nuclei, some collagen fibers, and down here, here's a tendon where there's dense regular connective tissue. And this is skeletal muscle. Why? Because what do tendons do? They attach muscles to bones, right? Another view, a little higher magnification. Again, you can kind of see the regular pattern. Here are those fibroblast cells. Collagen fibers kind of running through. Kind of pink wavy structures. Okay, well, this is dense regular. Higher magnification, same, you can see the fibroblast nuclei, regular collagen fibers with the wavy pattern. Y'all see that? Okay. Now this is dense irregular. Okay, so does this look wavy? Does this look like the last one? Okay, is it packed tightly though? Are the fibers packed tighter than the loose ones? Yes. So it's still dense, but it's irregular. So it's a dense irregular. Okay. All right. See this in joint capsules, and dermis. All right. Another view. Dense irregular. You get these bundles of collagen fibers, but again, just not in a regular pattern, right? You don't see the waves. Okay, here's that low power. Okay, you can see the collagen fibers again, not in a regular pattern. All right. So we also have, in connective tissue proper, we have elastic tissue. Okay, so this one also has some fibers that stain dark. These are elastic fibers, so gives the tissue more flexibility. Now, I told you earlier, reticular fibers have the black lines, and they do, but they're kind of all different directions. These are all kind of, again, flowing in that wavy pattern. Okay, so this is elastic tissue. And where do you have this? Well, one of the places you have it is in the wall of your aorta. Anybody know what your aorta does? You know where it is? Anybody know what the aorta is or where it is? It's attached to your heart, right? So all that force of blood pumping out of your heart goes, if it's oxygenated blood, it's going into your aorta, okay? Your aorta then has to then move all that blood to the rest of your body. So it has to have flexibility to withstand all that force of blood pumping into it and then be able to continue to move blood out of it, all right? So it needs elastic tissue. All right. So this is elastic tissue. These are elastic fibers. Again, here are the little fibroblast nuclei. All right. And it is dense. It's not as wavy as dense regular. Okay. But these are elastic fibers. Again, it is wavy, but not as dense or as wavy as the dense regular. Okay, same here. Same thing. All right, so that's connective tissue proper. So remember we said connective tissue proper, you have loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue, right? All right. And under the loose, you have your areolar, adipose, and reticular. And then under your dense, you have dense regular, dense irregular, and elastic, right? So now we're on to fluid connective tissue. So this is blood, okay? These are different kinds of blood cells, okay? The red cells with the white here in the middle, those are red blood cells, also known as erythrocytes or RBCs, okay? Now, they actually have, they're biconcave, which means they get thin in the middle, and that's why it's white in the middle, okay? Now, essentially, you have all these other things that are white blood cells in there. So you have neutrophils, monocytes, neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils. Now, in AMP1, we don't really get to cardiovascular system, okay? So we're not going to cover it in that great of detail in terms of how we're going to test you in lab. In lecture, we will ask you to know the functions of the different ones when we get to that chapter. Not so much, a little bit in the tissue chapter, but not so much after that. But for lab, what I need you to know, if they're red blood cells, okay? If they're purple, they're white blood cells. So in this, and this. These are all white blood cells. That's a platelet cell. And it's not really a cell, it's platelet, okay? So that's what I need you to be able to identify. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And think y'all can do that? Okay. So that's what I'd want you to be able to do. Okay, because we can do, y'all can do the rest of that identification in AMP2. Okay. All right, another view again, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Reds, red blood cell, purples, white blood cell, dots are platelets. Okay. All right, and we're not really going to cover lymph in this class, but again, that's for AMP2. Just know that it is a fluid connective tissue. All right, now we're on to cartilage. So cartilage, anytime you see these little dots, these little eyes, it's cartilage, okay? And those cells are called chondrocytes. Chondro is a root word that means cartilage. Cyte means cell. So anytime you see the chondrocytes, and those sites, chondrocytes live in these little spaces called lacuna, okay? And the pink around the chondrocytes, we call that matrix, okay? So our basic kind of cartilage we'll start with is hyaline cartilage, okay? You have these in your rib cage, okay, the costal cartilage. This is sort of your bread and butter cartilage, okay? Another view, you can see the chondrocytes and their lacuna. Here's the matrix. And around it, again, like you may see a whole slide. What you're looking for, if you see the little eyes down here, this is where your cartilage is, okay? This whole section down here. This is where the cartilage is. Okay. And the basement membrane, essentially for cartilage, we call that perichondrium, okay? Or at least this layer underneath it. All right, again, chondrocytes in their lacunae, the matrix around them, and another view of that. Okay, next we're gonna have elastic cartilage. Okay, you still see chondrocytes in their lacunae, but the difference here is that you've got elastic fibers in it, okay? So, and what do we say elastic fibers give you? Elastic fibers give you flexibility. Where do you have elastic cartilage? Your outer ear. Okay, that's why your ear bends. Okay, you got elastic cartilage in there. So you can see it looks like hyaline cartilage with the exception of the elastic fibers, right? So that's how you know it's not hyaline cartilage. All right, it's darker. You can see all those fibers in there. Darker, you see the fibers. Again, darker, you can see the fibers in the matrix. All right. We also have fibrocartilage. Okay, this is typically going to be a lighter staining. It's not, it depends on what stain you use, but generally it's going to be a lighter staining. It's not going to have the big hard lines. The lines are fainter, but it has more fibrous. So this is where you need this in areas where you need it to be stronger, the cartilage to be stronger. And so where do you see that? In the disc in between your vertebrae, okay? Because you need your spine to be able to hold the weight of your body, right? You need some more rigidity than you do in your ear. And these fibers are collagen fibers. Okay, so collagen fibers are more for strength. Elastic fibers are more for flexibility. Okay, so that's kind of a theme that you kind of want to remember is elastic fibers are more for flexibility, collagen fibers are more for strength. All right. So here are the fibers in the matrix for your fibrocartilage. Again, you can see your chondrocytes and their lacunae. Again, same. Got some fibers in that cartilage. All right. There's your matrix with the fibers in it. Okay. So cartilage is a supporting connective tissue, as is bone. Okay, so characteristics of bone. So if we start here, we did a transverse section through there, right? See this section of the bone. The superficial layer is compact, the deep layer is spongy. Okay, we'll learn more about that later. But you've got these rings. We call these lamellae. These lamellae are concentric when they have these rings. We also have some lamellae out here on the edge. Okay, and that's forms what we call periosteum. And remember, osteo means bone. So it's sort of your outer layer of your bone is periosteum. Your outer layer of your cartilage is perichondrium. Okay. So things you need to know about bone. If you see the rings on the trees like that, this whole thing is an osteon. Okay, it's an osteon. Now within the osteon, you've got some different structures. You have these little dots around them, and those are osteocytes. So just like we had chondrocytes in cartilage, we have osteocytes, right, in bone. And the osteocytes live in lacunae, just like the cartilage cells do. Now the space around the osteocytes is also called matrix, bone matrix. The little faint lines going from lacunae to lacunae, we call those canaliculi. They're like little tunnels, okay? Like little canals. This hole in the middle, we call this the central canal, because it's in the center. And what does it house? It houses blood vessels. Okay? That's how your blood gets nutrients inside the bone. Okay? So you actually do have blood vessels inside your bones. But if you see this characteristic structure, you're looking at bone. Okay? But you definitely need to know about the canaliculi, the osteocytes, and the lacunae, a central canal, the concentric lamellae. All right, so it's another view, the same thing. You see the rings on the trees. It's an osteon. Faint lines are canaliculi. The dots are the osteocytes and their lacunae. The space is the matrix. The hole in the middle is the central canal with the blood vessels in it. All right, this is what it looks like on a slide. Here's an osteon, here's an osteon, here's an osteon, here's an osteon. All right, central canal, and then there's what we call a perforating canal that goes in between the central canals. Okay. And each ring around the tree, so to speak, each ring around the central canal is called a lamellae, or a lamella, and then plural is lamellae. Okay. All right, yeah, so there's an individual lamella, plural, multiple rings are lamellae. Okay. All right, so that's connective tissue. So again, you got connective tissue proper, fluid connective tissue, supporting connective tissue, right? Those are your subcategories. All right. So let's go on to muscle tissue real quick. So for muscle tissue, what you really need to know here, muscle tissue has 3 types. So, all right, skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Now, how we classify them or identify them, say, are they voluntary? Do they have How many nuclei do they have per cell? Are they striated? Okay. And I didn't make another. So skeletal muscle is voluntary. You don't have to think to move. Okay. So you're going to have more than one nuclei per cell. Okay. It's multinucleated. It is striated. All right. And these are these little horizontal lines you see going across. Those are striations. Okay. And each row here is considered a skeletal muscle cell. Okay. Or skeletal muscle fiber. So, and obviously muscle helps your body, move, right? Does that through contractions. But I hope you can see that here. Lots of nuclei in here, right? See lots of little dots? Lots of dots here. It's multiple nuclei. All right. Same view here. Same view. You see all these nuclei. Okay. See the striations. Okay. Now, cardiac muscle. We'll add location to this. Skeletal muscles are located in the skeleton. Cardiac muscles found the heart. Right? Is cardiac muscle voluntary? Do you have to think to make your heart beat? No, right? That'd be really bad if we had to think about it every time. All right, one nuclei per cell. Is it striated? Do you see those horizontal lines here? It's kind of harder to see than skeletal muscle for sure, but there are little faint lines in here, so it is striated. So, and also a little extra information about cardiac muscle tissue is that it's branched, right? Because you remember skeletal was just straight lines going across. There are branches here, okay? It's not straight. Also, you have intercalated disc. All right, so these little lines, like right here, these are intercalated discs, and they allow the cells to talk to each other. And so you can kind of see here, these are some branch off points, okay? If you see that, that's cardiac muscle. All right. Again, you can see the branching here well in the picture, in the intercalated discs. Another view, again, you see it's muscle, it has striations, but it's not a regular pattern. You have intercalated discs and branching, so it's cardiac muscle. All right, same here, see the branching and intercalated discs. This view, you can see the striations a little better. All right, then we have smooth muscle. And that's found in the walls of hollow organs. Okay, this is not voluntary. You don't have to think to make your blood vessels move blood through your body, or make your intestines move food through your digestive tract. All right, one nuclei per cell. These are not striated, so this is a difference. Okay. Actually, this would go under location, walls of hollow organs. All right. So And these are spindle-shaped cells. You can see that, but they're they're thin and they're narrow on the ends. And I'll have some models in here for you on Thursday, so you can kind of see that as well. All right. There's layer smooth muscle here, circular and longitudinal. Just seeing it in different sections. It's smooth muscle. Here you can see the spindle fiber shape or spindle shaped cells, narrow on the ends. All right, 3 types of muscle tissue: skeletal, cardiac, smooth, right? So skeletal, it's voluntary, right? Which ones are involuntary? Cardiac and smooth. All right, which ones have multiple nuclei per cell? All right, which one's found in the heart? Which one's found in the walls of heart, hollow organs? Which one has intercalated discs? Cardiac. Which ones are striated? Cardiac and skeletal. Good. All right, let's finish up with nerve tissues. What I want you to know here, okay, you've got, this is a neuron. There's really 2 cells we want you to know in nervous tissue: the neurons and the neuroglia. All right, neuroglia are supporting cells. Okay, so here's your cell body. All right, you have one long axon that sends information. Dendrites are receiving information. You have lots of those. All right, and again, you got all these supporting cells and neuroglia around it. Okay, so again, you see the neuroglia, all these other cells are neuroglia. All right. But yes, right here it says supporting cells, neuroglia. It says that here on this side. All right, there's your cell body, axon, dendrites. Again, dendrites receive information, axons send or conduct information. These are ends of the axon. We call these synaptic terminals. Okay, and we'll learn more about that when we cover the nervous system. All right, and so we'll learn more about all these parts. But again, this is an axon, and then the branches, we call those telodendria, and then those are the axon or synaptic terminals there. But you definitely want to know about axons, dendrites, the cell body, the telodendria, and the axon or synaptic terminals. Okay. All right, so you get another view of the axons and the dendrites on the neuron. You can see all the neuroglia around it. Here's another view of neuroglia. Okay, and these particular ones are star-shaped. So we'll learn more about those when we cover nervous system. But these are all the supportive cells are neuroglia. All right, and here are their functions. So they maintain physical structure in the tissues. They can repair tissues when they're injured. They can perform phagocytosis, which means they can eat things that are bad for your cells. They can give your neurons nutrients, and they can regulate the composition of the fluid around the neurons. Okay. Again, here's another view of the neuroglia. All right, so we'll cover body membranes on Thursday. Shouldn't take too long, but we'll cover that on Thursday. All right, so if y'all can go ahead and do your exit tickets. All right.